Ho 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 and a bottle of rum. Merry Christmas and all those things. I love the Christmas season. So today I bring you a very special Christmas present. Hello there, I'm Simon. Welcome to my channel. If all goes well, today should be Christmas Day. And what better way to celebrate than to tell the tale of Christmas? Well, I guess I could have just skipped a week, but here we are. Anyway, there's a bunch of stories about Christmas, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is coming to town, the Grinch, etc. But today I would like to go back further than all of those and tell the biblical version. Well, sorta. The thing is that the Bible doesn't actually give a lot of information about Jesus' birth. It kinda just mentions that it happened and then continues with what happened next. And the story we're all familiar with evolved later, with elements being added on over time. So, despite most people probably already knowing this story, it's tradition, so let's tell it anyway. It all starts sometime around the year 0, from our point of view. This whole BC AD thing wasn't implemented when the kid was born. It was actually created centuries later by a guy called Dionysus. And he basically just took a lucky guess. Scholars estimate that he was off by about 6 years, which is actually impressively accurate. But let's just assume that it was in 0 AD. So around that time, God came up with a plan to set humanity straight. Rather than appearing to everyone saying, "Hey, behave will ya?" he decided to make a girl pregnant with his son. So let's meet the lucky girl. Her name is Mary, and she's married to a guy called Joseph. He's a carpenter, has his own little business. She does pretty much all the work around the house, because this is antiquity, and it's a few millennia too soon for feminism. So one night, she is woken by a guy called Gabriel. Says he's an angel. Like any normal person, I imagine Mary's reaction was something like this. "Ah! Who are you? What do you want? Get out of my house!" "Mary, calm the heaven down. Name's Gabriel. I have a message for you from God." "You mean Ganesh?" "What? Of course not." "Allah?" "Little early for that, lady." "Jehovah?" "Duh." "What does he want?" "You're the chosen one." "Oh, fantastic. You are to give birth to his son, which is also himself somehow." "That doesn't make any sense." "Hey, don't shoot the messenger, lady. This is not my idea." "What if I don't want to?" "It's not really a question. You kinda have to." And with those words, he vanished, leaving poor Mary to explain all that to Joseph. Now, Israel, which is where all this is happening, at the time was part of the Roman Empire. And around that time, some guy called Augustus issued what's called a census, a counting of the population. So, instead of counting everyone where they lived, which would not only have made things a lot easier, but would also have given a much more accurate representation of reality, he made everyone go back to the place where they were born. So because Joseph was born in Bethlehem, our little family had to leave Nazareth, where they lived, to go to, well, Bethlehem. Now, if you don't know where either of these villages are, don't feel bad, because neither do I. The journey there was not very interesting, so everyone always just skips it. What happens after it was infinitesimally more interesting. So, when they arrived in Bethlehem, they of course tried to find a place to stay. Unfortunately, they couldn't find any. All the inns were full. How is every single inn full? This is Bethlehem we're talking about, not Rome or Paris. Bethlehem! I imagine that conversation would have gone something like this. "Good evening, sir. We need a place to stay tonight." "I'm sorry, sir. I'm full." "Come on, sir. my wife is pregnant. Please give us a room." "I would, sir, but I really can't. See, we have the Bethlehem Festival of Life this week. People are coming all the way from Susa, Persia for it. So you see, I really don't have any rooms left." And of course, they couldn't stay with Joseph's parents. That would have been way too awkward. Whatever the reason, the family was forced to find a place somewhere else. Eventually, they settled in a sort of shed or barn or stable. The earliest versions actually speak of a cave. So in that shed, barn, stable, cave thingy, that night on the 25th of December, Jesus Christ was born. Possibly. Maybe. They named the kid Jesus because that's a common Jewish name. And of course, if you know your kid is gonna grow up to be an important guy, you give him the most common name you can think of. That's why all the French monarchs are called Louis. No idea where the Christ bit comes from though. Is it his surname? Is Joseph's full name Joseph Christ? Is it his second name? I don't know. What I do know is that they got some visitors. First to arrive were the shepherds. According to the story, they were hanging out with their sheep in the middle of winter, at night, when an angel appeared to them, saying, "Guys, you gotta go to that shed, barn, stable, cave thingy over there. There's a huge party going on there. That's the place to be tonight." So they went there, expecting to find a party, but finding a newborn kid instead. And at that moment, Gabriel appeared, saying, "Gotcha!" Speaking of Gabe, the angels were also there. The scene usually only shows one, I guess to keep it simple. But according to the story, there were actually about 1,000 of them. You know, 1, 1,000, what's the difference? It's like they chose one lucky angel to represent them in the nativity scene. I think they held a huge talent show to find them. Heaven's Got Talent. The last to arrive were the kings, the 3 magi. Do you know their names? Balthazar, Caspar and Melchior. How typical is it, by the way, that we know the names of the kings, but not of the shepherds? You know what? Let's do something about that. Let's call them Aaron, Bart and Elias. Alright, the shepherds' names are Aaron, Bart and Elias. So from now on, whenever you tell the story of the birth of Jesus, I want you to tell your audience that those shepherds are called Aaron, Bart and Elias. And if we do it right, in a century or so, everyone will be convinced that the shepherds are called Aaron, Bart and Elias. And that they have been since the very beginning. What was I talking about? The kings. So, the kings were last to arrive. In fact, they were about 2 weeks late. You know why? They went to the wrong king. They heard that the new king of the Jews was born, so they went to Herod, the actual king of Israel. Now, as funny as that is, it's an easy mistake to make. I mean, if you hear the king of the Jews was born, you wouldn't be looking for some newborn son of a carpenter laying somewhere in a manger near Bethlehem, right? You would go to the palace, to the guy who is actually king. So they were about 2 weeks later than everyone else. But on the nativity scenes, they are always depicted together. The family, the shepherds, the lucky angel, and the kings. How long did they stay there? Did no one have anything better to do? And surely by this time the festival is over. Surely by then there would be a free room in one of the inns. Anyway, after this, the family returned to Nazareth. Jesus grew up and became this famous preacher. In the end, he was convicted and crucified by the Romans. This way he pacified himself and humanity was forgiven for that one sin Eve committed millennia ago. 3 days later, the guy came back from the dead anyway, which, if you ask me, kinda cancels the deal. And eventually he went back to heaven, this time on his own accord. And what he said grew into one of the biggest religions in the world. to make a long story short. Shall we do the YouTube thing? You know, I don't think I will today. It's Christmas. So, Merry Christmas everyone, and Happy New Year. Let's make the next year better than the last one, shall we? It's just under a week before 2021 is here, so I don't plan to be back in 2020. So, I'll see you next year.